There was once a guy that went to a Jewish gala, not unlike this, and he was assured that the meal was going to be kosher. So he sat down and he looked at the menu for the meal, and it said beef was going to be for dinner, but ice cream was going to come for dessert. He said, no, you can't have ice cream after beef unless you wait a long time. And so they looked at him and they said, don't worry, the speeches. That might be all you remember from this little talk, so, I'm happy. This is a time of the year called the time of Elul. Elul is the month before Rosh Hashanah. And it has a story to it, If you may remember, Moses goes up the mountain. I'm a rabbi, I have to do this, Moses goes up the mountain on Shavuos in the end of the spring, and he comes down 40 days later on the 17th of Tammuz, and he finds that the Jewish people have built a golden calf, an idol. And so he gets furious, and God says, destroy the people. He takes the tablets and he smashes them. Then there are 3 weeks of destruction, and then there are 3 more weeks of healing, and then on the 1st of Elul of this month, God says to Moses, go up again. Now, most people would say, no, bad experience the first time, I'm not going. But Moses says no. He says, this people deserves a second chance. And so he goes up on Elul, and by the time he comes down 40 days later, on what we now call Yom Kippur, the people are all wearing white, they're fasting, they greet him, and they say, we deserved a second chance, and we took the second chance. I came to Hungary, I just talked to my wife, and I said, how long should we go to Hungary? Let's go for a couple years, which was an amazing idea. Now, 6 years later, here I am. I'm having trouble leaving Hungary. That's the real thing. To tell you the truth, what's really in my heart is I love Hungary, and I sat out there and in the cocktail time, and I said I love all the people here. Really, it's been one of the great adventures of my life, and I'm incredibly grateful. I just have a few things to say because, after all, it's late. Number one, there's no community in the world that I think needs a second chance and took the second chance more than Hungary. We are the second chance people. We are the people that needed and was given. After the Holocaust and communism, it wasn't a clear place. In 1994, I was on a young leadership mission of the UJA, and we were going to go to Israel, but the Intifada broke out in Israel right when we were in Europe. So someone said, let's go to Hungary. Michael, do you know anything about Hungary? I said, I know a little bit about everything. And so let's go to Hungary. And so we went, and when we got to Hungary in 1994, we came to the Balance House. And it was still being renovated. There was sheetrock on the wall, and I remember thinking what a delightful and glorious place it was. And then I even got to give a sermon at the Dohan Synagogue with a big black Hungarian rabbi hat. I have a picture. I'll show you sometime. 30 years ago, we started a thing called the Jewish Community Center, the Balance House Jewish Community Center. Wow. 30 years ago, wow, So I just want to talk for 1 minute about each of those 3 words. Number one, Jewish. 30 years ago, the Jewish community of the world came to Hungary in some way to think about a second chance, but Asher Austrian, my friend, said, really, we came to close the community, sell the buildings, get people out of there. We didn't think there was a chance, kind of like what Miklos said. Who would come? They didn't get it. But then he was surprised. It was a vibrant and a reawakening community in general. And there were Jews, many more Jews than anybody had known, right? When you came to Hungary during that time, you thought there were 500 Jews, and there were thousands and tens of thousands and even 100,000 Jews. And at first the Jews came from the world to teach the Hungarians, just as Marcel said and other people, how to be Jewish and this and that. But I think that what really happened is that we learned from the Hungarian community that there was an innovative way, that there were more ways of being Jewish, that there was a deeper way of being Jewish, that there was a more creative way of being Jewish. There had always been a narrative about Europe. Jewish Europe was gone, and we should take the remnants somewhere safe. Israel, America, get them out of there. Europe is a graveyard. But as my friend Tommy Buchler once told me, when they said that to us, he said, we aren't leaving. We like it here. Just like Paley later on, we're not leaving. We're staying here. We're going to rebuild. We need the second chance. Please help us. And I want to say that we didn't only help you, you helped us. Because Hungary, I believe, right now is a jewel of the Jewish world. And the second word, Jewish community. community center. You know, I remember that Fritzy, not just gates, but I remember one thing you said, you did put out a lot of doors, right? And we said, we're going to open doors. We'll open doors to all sorts of people, not just synagogues, not just religious people, all kinds of Jews. We'll have Judah Fest, we'll have theater, we'll have service, we'll have education, we'll have fun, we'll have meetings, we'll have helping refugees, children, survivors, and much more. And when the Jews come from abroad, they'll ask how many people go to synagogues and how many people and how many synagogues are there. But it will be the wrong question. The right question was, how many Jews do how many different things? How did Jews take care of each other? How did Jews take care of this community around them? How did Jews build the Jewish community? How did Jews take responsibility for the world? And center. What difference does it make where the center is? If you think about a geometric circle, you can put the center anywhere. You can just always use it as a foci. But here, it designates some kind of focus. It's hard to compete as a center with such beautiful and enormous synagogues and federation buildings that are ornate, or even all those Jewish-looking people with black hats and long coats that were in the plane coming to Hungary right next to me. They come to visit the graves of the righteous, but I came to visit the glory of the living. And to build a center for community on vision and openness is not obvious. You need a lot of support, but let me tell you, your worldwide Jewish community is here for you. And I believe, and I know, and I feel, and I'm overwhelmed by how much you are there for them. When the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed in the year 70, we had to make a decision. Should we try to rebuild what was, or should we move on and build something that had never been? And the rabbis of the Talmud built a new Jewish center based on learning and courage to innovate instead of in a single place, in all places. And we would observe rituals so that at least we would recognize each other when we met. We would eat the kind of food that we eat, the kosher food. We would keep Shabbat. And we would live in many places, and we would be linked together by the practices and care and imagination. And that Judaism that the rabbis built lasted for almost 2,000 years. It's a triumph of all of human imagination. But it didn't run out of steam. It would be around today, but sadly it was murdered. And so what's our challenge right now? What's the challenge of this group, both the ones that live in Hungary and the ones that don't? Like the first rabbis, we should not try and return and rebuild the past. We should use everything we have to imagine the future. We should ask all the questions again, and we should see how we can answer them. We should see what's meaningful and sustaining, and we should ask what was once glorious but how has outlived its use. We should build a JCC. These kind of questions should be asked at the center, at a community center, and in fact, at the most authentic community center, a Jewish community center. It is what the Jewish community needs to do the most. And we, the people now has a land that's in trouble, the land that is Israel, we have to know that Jews shouldn't only live there and they shouldn't only live here. For us to be strong, we must answer the question of what is Jewish for the future of Israel, for the Jews of New York, and for the Jews of Budapest. That is the business of a JCC. So when you hear all those people and you see them on the stage, don't just think of them as Marcel and Yudka and Gabor and David and Zhuzha and Gurgu, hard name for Americans, and Jofi and Mircha and Fritzy. Think of them as Moses and Aaron, as Joshua and Miriam and David and Solomon and Elijah. Think of us as Hillel and Shammai, Yochanan ben Zakkai, Shimon bar Yochai, Rabbi Akiva, Beruria, Imer Shalom. Think of all of us going up the mountain again to get what is ours, and doing it with courage, with imagination, and particularly with love, and to bring it down not just for the Jews of Hungary, but for everyone in the Jewish world. It's holy work. It's a privilege to be part of it.